Video, we are going to be talking about setting up graphics for a soccer game here in Production Truck. So soccer graphics will be shown for you today. Again, we have a first video, which I titled Setting Up a Broadcast from Production Truck, for kind of general rules and a tutorial walkthrough on, once you have everything set up, how to get your broadcast going for a game of any kind, specifically for kind of setting up your graphics. You've got video, you've got audio going. How do you go about setting things up for a soccer game? We'll show you here today. If this is the first kind of tutorial video, the graphics kind you're watching, you're going to have two tabs here. Anything you've previously downloaded or whatever laptop you're working with is going to already be located in this open tab. For new things that you want to explore or to download and use for the first time, you're going to be going to this download tab. You have a way with the filters to sort for whichever sport or type of graphics you're looking for. In this case, you can kind of sort and find things specific to soccer. First thing you're going to want to do, there's going to be three graphics you're absolutely going to want to use for each game. One of which is going to be listed under any section, and that will be the image overlay queue. We talked about this a little bit in a previous video about football graphics. I'll quickly go over it here, but go over to the football video tutorial if you want to kind of see a little bit more about how to do this. Pick your image overlay queue. This is how you input all of the live read graphics that we have going on. So we'll share with you a folder of some graphics. It's also got a Google Doc which explains all the in-game mentions and reads you should be doing each broadcast of whichever school you're doing a game for. So you'll download that. You'll see kind of on my desktop here in the bottom left corner, I have this broadcast graphics folder. I downloaded a sample of some of the broadcast graphics from last year we used for Shakopee. So I have that on my desktop. It's called Broadcast Graphics. You got to kind of input them one at a time. So we've got this Follow Us on Social one. We'll hit Choose File there and enter that one. We've got an upcoming schedule on Sabres Live. We'll add that one for an example. We'll just throw up three here really quick. You hit Choose File. We'll do this podcast promo. You hit Apply to go from there. So you'll see we'll drag this image overlay here into kind of our preview pane. Nothing you'll notice is showing up. That's because you're using the image overlay queue. So you want to click on the specific graphic that you want to use, and it lets you kind of seamlessly switch between them. You hit overlay when you want to throw it up onto the broadcast so it's actually going out to the viewers, and you can switch between your different little lower thirds and sometimes full screen graphics, whatever you have loaded up there. So that's the image overlay queue. That is one you should be using every broadcast. The next are soccer specific. So we'll go into download. We'll filter by soccer. You are going to want a scoreboard. So I recommend, for consistency's sake, we use this scoreboard flat design. We'll select that. There's also going to be one called a soccer control panel, which is going to be how you're going to update the score. It's just called control panel. It's under the soccer section. You're going to want that one as well too. So these are going to be the starting point. Once you've downloaded them, you hit that download button. Then you will go over the open tab where you can open them. So here's what you got. You've got your control panel. This is how you update the score, what half it is, when it's halftime, a clock, which, you can set this to be pulling from a scoreboard. We'll have a separate video tutorial on that. But you can go in and manually set a clock, and you could start running it from here. Or if you need to make an adjustment on the clock for any reason, so 45 minutes, you can hit start, and it'll count up. You can set it to count down. You hit this eyeball to basically when you want that to appear on your scoreboard. So this is the control panel. This is actually how you just control what is showing up on the scoreboard, but the actual physical scoreboard graphic itself is this tab, which you drag over to here. You'll notice if you try to put the control panel over here, nothing shows up, because that doesn't actually, you can't drag the control panel over here to have it show up. You have to drag the scoreboard itself. You use the control panel to update the score from within that. So I recommend for soccer putting it typically you'll see it a lot of times on the upper left. Some people like to put it on the lower left, kind of whatever you think looks best based on kind of how your camera guy is shooting the game. But you have control over that. You can add a pop-up text over it. A lot of our schools have a Vile and Wild orthodontic sponsor of the scoreboards. You'd want to put that up there. Go to your control panel to basically control everything else. So this is where you're updating the score. You can type in your teams from these two tabs below. So we can make it, I've been doing a lot of Prior Lake Shakopee examples. Your team abbreviation is what is actually going to show up. You can pick a color for what you want that team to show up as there, and also select a file of a logo for the team, which will also have an impact on kind of how that scorebug looks and works. Put in another team here. In this case, we'll do Shakopee. Put Shako for their team abbreviation. Sabres are red. You can select a logo for them as well too. You're pretty much set up to go from here. You'll notice when you kind of overlay it that's when those logos that I typed in show up, so that looks pretty good. We definitely recommend you do that. You hit overlay to actually push it out onto the broadcast. You hit clear to wipe everything. This is actually what's showing up down here from below. That's the scoreboard. The image overlay, you've got a couple options here. You can drag the image overlay, onto the actual field, and then they both will show up at the same time. You can hit an X to get rid of one of them, keep the scorebug up there. You can drag the tab over next to the other tab, and you can kind of then actually seamlessly kind of switch between the two, or if you want to queue one of them up, but you don't want it to show up right away necessarily. You'll get used to this, but just kind of play around and see, how you can drag to both of those spots, switch between them, or kind of preview both of them at the same time, basically, is the difference of what I'm doing there. So those are the main graphics you're going to use for soccer. There's other stuff that you might want to do if you have time. There's a way that you can throw in the starting lineup. I think this one just called lineup looks the best. We can dump this one into the game. So before the game starts in your pregame show, you can go through the starters. How you input those is under your team tab. So for Prior Lake, you go in here, and you can type in, all the player names. So first name, last name, their position, and what grade they're in. And that's how you get this to populate from your starting lineup graphic. So that's the one I like to use. I'll throw that in if I have time. Soccer, that's mostly pretty much what you're going to be using, but that's how you kind of set up graphics, set up your teams, and get things going for your soccer game.